Great. So we're going to talk a little about food today with whoever drops by. The reason is because I'm designing a menu for a strange place in the forest down in Mexico, and I want to make sure we're eating the best stuff we can. So Alan and I started talking about food and how we should eat and why. Prior to this chat, there had been some conversation about the eating of meat and the meaning of that. So you're going to join this conversation with a reference to a documentary called Cowspiracy, which is kind of against the eating of beef and probably meat in general.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, dude.
I watched that movie and freaked out. And
Cowspiracy?
Yeah, I started doing things like bringing my own container to the restaurant and having them plop a salad in there. And this is what I was going to this place getting Italian subs like every day, turkey bacon subs. And I saw that movie and I just stopped instantly. And I did really well. I did really well with that for about two and a half months.
If there's anything that's important, it's probably the food. Yeah, food is the most important thing, you know?
Yeah.
In fact, some people ask me that. They're like, well, what can I do in my life? You know, I don't live in the middle of the forest trying to make a permaculture farm.
Right.
What can I do in my life to change things? And I tell them, well, look at how you're eating. You have power over every single day.
Right.
And it has effect not only on the world and the rest of the environment and economy, but in your own body and life as well. So meat's controversial. Let's talk a little bit about that, but also let's talk about all the other systems that support our food. We'll figure some stuff out. I thought it was a really well done movie. I like to see things like that aren't just over the top propaganda, but try and have some substance and use for people in making better decisions. And that is probably the biggest food controversy we have, is whether or not we should be eating as much meat as we do, and how it's raised.
I wasn't sure how much of that I was actually supposed to buy. I initially he completely had me, and then it just seems like one of those things where, how can everyone be wrong about this? How is this the first time I've heard about it?
Well, I don't know why it's the first time you've heard about it. I mean, there's a lot of material out there about decisions regarding diet. And one of the problems is that a lot of people are really adamant that they're right and everybody else is wrong. So I think it's good to be suspicious of any point of view, but to gather a lot of different points of view. Because even if someone says something is factual, that may be the information that they've enjoyed having near them.
Right.
And so I don't even believe what I believe. I question that heavily.
You always have to be a true skeptic, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it was just his main point of the transportation and the cities not being anywhere near as big of a problem as factory farming. And when I absorbed the entire movie, it was totally believable. And then I went back to thinking my entire life, the whole save the planet thing in the 90s and everything we do, alternative energy right now, is that all just worthless, like a drop in the bucket compared to factory farming?
Well, I mean, I think you're reacting to the fact that movie is about one topic, and we're looking at systemic problems of all kinds. And the meat issue is related to energy problems as well, because it's extremely inefficient the way we're doing it. We're using oil-fueled agriculture to raise the food for these cows, and then we're transporting the meat around, which costs a lot ecologically as well. So, I mean, these things are not really separate, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah, but I do find it a little bit. I find it very useful when someone has only one issue that they want. You really have to agree with them on it, and they know. When it's like, we've got a lot of stuff to think about here, and it's a lot of systems to consider. So, like I, for example, am supportive of a vegetarian diet. I think it's a great idea, and mostly vegan diet even. But at the same time, I've raised rabbits, that I've raised and killed, and we tanned the hides and used all the rabbit. And those rabbits were just eating plants right out of the forest. So ecologically speaking, that's very good meat by some standards.
You're not having a negative impact at all. If you're
Right.
not buying the feed, then you're doing it naturally.
Right. Essentially, it's the same as hunting, except that I put the animals in one controlled spot.
You're stalking the forest. That's it.
Right. Yeah. And I've written about this. I've written about, you can look at my name and raising rabbits online. And I've written about why I think they're very efficient, why I think that this is the most humane way to raise meat that I know of. And it's actually easier than chickens. So I keep chickens for eggs and rabbits for meat because that seems most efficient. In fact, I think I've got, here, I'll show you something. Yeah, so we even made rabbit skin hats. I don't think vegetarians are going to like this very much.
Hey, it doesn't bother me. Use every part. Use every part you can.
And that's what we've done.
Now, do you live somewhere where you have a harsh winter?
Not really. It's fairly mild. I live in the mountains in Mexico.
Okay.
So it gets chilly this time of year, but it doesn't even freeze hardly.
The mountains of Mexico.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you a long distance runner by any means?
I used to be. I'm too lazy now. I should be.
All right.
I'll send you a link to the Facebook page for the project.
Alrighty.
It's a pretty interesting place. It's developed I started it in 2004. It's off the grid. I have only like 340 watts of solar panels. I do rain capture, solar ovens, composting toilets.
Yep. And high-speed internet, I see.
Yeah, that's one of the most important piece of technology I have.
It's the one that I couldn't do without.
Yeah, I have a satellite dish, and so I use electricity for two things, and that's LED lights and laptop computers with internet.
Okay. Yep. Excellent.
Yeah. So questions for you about food.
Okay.
What kind of stuff do you eat?
I have over the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've slacked and I've been living a very American diet, just because of the holidays, and I relapsed because I went very drastically from an American diet to trying to be as vegan as I could. And I was doing a lot of uncooked stuff, which I think turned me off a lot. I didn't have the cooking. The hot meal is oftentimes what you miss. But I can do some killer salads, and I was doing lots and lots of nuts, lots of beans, making interesting smoothies and juicing and trying to do things with the pulp. I drink kava regularly. Do you know what kava is?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think kava is fun.
At this point, Alan and I started talking about kava quite a bit. It's a mild sedative drug, quite interesting. I put that information in another video, so you can click the link below and watch that one if you like, or keep watching our discussion about food.
And that's kind of what I do during the week. I'll drink a lot of mate and kava. And then mate during the morning, switch to kava afternoon, and then have my amazing salad. And then, I'm just finding it hard to stick with the groove, even though I feel so amazing on it. I'm always up here. I'm just always tempted by that world that I lived in with the pizza and
Sure.
the chicken wings and the cheeseburger. It's
Well,
all around me.
I just saw a report recently that essentially said cheese acts like a drug in your system. I mean, we really like cheese.
I
like it. Yeah, so it's not a surprise. So let's get back to the food thing.
Okay.
So you went kind of in a vegetarian direction. You thought a lot about what you wanted to eat and why, and you kind of moved away from that again.
Yeah.
What's your kind of plan in terms of making food decisions for your future?
I know that there needs to be more actual cooking involved, especially now that we're getting into winter up here and things are colder. I'm going to be craving those hot meals, and I need to, just like I do with kava, finding the different sources. I need to keep researching and finding the different foods to eat. I've just recently learned about kimchi, and I've been eating that. I love that stuff. So it's little things like that when they come together as a whole diet, it should be able to sustain me. It should be able to keep me interested.
Yeah, kimchi is a fantastic thing. For anybody who doesn't know, kimchi is a vegetable ferment where you're taking lactobacillus in vegetable mix, and then it's fermenting. The most common version of that people are aware of in the Western world is sauerkraut, which is sort of boring kimchi. The sauerkraut's usually just a cabbage, but kimchi has a whole bunch of other stuff, and it can be spicy or not. So when I make it in buckets about this big, and I'll make two if there's enough people around to eat it, and I'll make one that's spicy and one that isn't. And even my own preference depends on, what mood I'm in. Sometimes I want it spicy, sometimes I don't. It's usually fairly salty because you're using salt initially with the vegetables to keep it from going bad. So you're repressing a lot of bad bacteria, and you're letting the lactobacillus do the work for you in digesting these vegetables, pre-digesting them for you. So it's super healthy. It's a probiotic. Now, are you buying currently your kimchi, or are you making it?
I have been buying it from a farmer's market. I bought up a lot the last market we had, and I would definitely be interested in making my own. You mentioned the salt. Is that something to look for? Can you be consuming too much salt if you're eating kimchi a lot?
Well, I'm thinking just like you want to do. I'm thinking about every single ingredient I use and how I use it. From what I was raised believing that salt was bad for you, but some recent studies have shown that maybe it isn't. Just like everything else, there seems to be a lot of confusion about food.
Back and forth, yes.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Certainly, a certain amount of salt is good in your diet. And so that's something to wonder about, though, is are you over consuming salt? The cool thing about kimchi is you could just eat a little bit and you're still getting all those good organisms in your body. So you don't have to really pig out on it. In fact, I don't tend to want to eat that much. I see it as a kind of nice side to something else.
Yeah.
Or a snack even.
Yeah. It's like your pickled ginger on the side of your sushi or something like that.
Right.
And it goes on the side of my salad. A lot of times, like I'll have a hummus or something there too, or pickled anything. I love like dilly beans or something like that. 3-bean salad.
Dilly beans are great. Now that's a vinegar process.
Yeah.
But with the kimchi, you can totally get into that easily. And as far as getting into fermentation, it's a great way to start because it's so easy. Also, it's really cheap because cabbage is one of the base ingredients, and cabbage is just super cheap.
Okay. I've got some decent sized jars, and I can get some bigger ones. And I'll look into just starting a basic kimchi, and then I'll go from there by adding different things.
Yeah, there's a good book called Wild Fermentation by Sandor Katz, and he's also got a new book out that describes lots of different types of ferments. It's pretty interesting. And I'll put a link to that in the video as well.
Excellent.
For me, I don't like to do a really small batches. A lot of people do small batches of things. I'm always looking for the right scale for me.
Right.
Of course, when I'm alone, I can't use a ton of it, but it does last a long time. So you can make a kimchi, something pretty big, and then see how it develops over time. And if it ever goes off, you'll know it. You'll know the flavor. And so, yeah, I mean, you can let them go for months.
Okay.
Outside the refrigerator. Even in fermentation books, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, fermented to this level, then put it in the refrigerator." Right. It's like, well, let yourself experiment with the process that people were using before we had refrigerators, because the whole idea was to preserve the food to eat later.
Right.
So you shouldn't really have to have a refrigerator to do this kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, they said indefinitely in our fridge this stuff would last. So.
Sure.
I'm not sure I would know when it's gone off.
it's an interesting question. I mean, if you eat something enough, you get used to the right flavor. Sandor Katz is a really great has a great attitude about this. My theory is he has AIDS, and I think that correlated with him being more willing to experiment. Basically, he decided, fuck it, I'm going to rot a bunch of food and see what happens and eat it, just like we used to do a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so he's fairly brave. He's much braver than I am. Like I had a ferment I was doing. It was a bean ferment, and it got some kind of weird mold on it. Mm-hmm. Now, in his books, he always just says, oh, scrape it off, toss it, and just eat the other stuff, you know? And I need to read up a little bit more on food poisoning issues to understand that, because there is some limit there. I don't know what it is, but I do know this. When you get enough experience with a particular kind of fermentation, you do learn what's the correct flavor and what isn't. Like I've brewed a lot of beer and mead, and you just start to know, okay, that's not the right flavor. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, I'm taking the wrong path here.
Yeah. Okay. What about the vinegar process? Are you big on that at all? Is that a good thing to get into?
It probably is. I haven't gotten a lot into it, but you can take wines or fermented things and make vinegars out of them. I've had it happen accidentally on occasion. Yep. And since you mentioned you like dilly beans, which I do too, that's a great way to go. Now with that, you could actually start with just buying the vinegar, because vinegar is so cheap. So that isn't quite as exciting a process
as creating.
But yeah. But you can start with different levels of each thing, mm-hmm. and over time, if you keep doing this for a couple of years, pretty soon your kitchen has all these really yummy, weird, cool foods, and your friends will start being like, "Hey, that's really awesome," And women, if you like women, they often are into that kind of thing too. So it's a great way to impress people.
Yes. I have a lot of friends that are really spicy. I can go intense on the garlic now. As I get older, the older I get, the more I crave the garlic. And that started because I was going to the store and I was buying the regular old kosher dill pickles, the spears, and they're just, the salt content is through the roof. And they're expensive, and you go through them quickly. But then you have that jar, and what I would end up doing is throwing things in there. I was throwing carrots and onions and peppers, and wow, this is really good. So then I started getting more creative and throwing in garlic and just like pickled garlic, man. Whew.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, and if you do the cost comparison on what you're doing there, you're taking a vegetable that's super cheap, and you're turning it into something you like, that would be expensive.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can get away from the preservatives a little bit more there. At least know what your preservatives are that you're putting in there.
Yeah, I mean, when I make kimchi, it's just salt. That's the only preservative. Yeah. And I know where it comes from. And, I can buy a bunch of vegetables and make something this big, and it's totally cheap.
Yeah.
And people come here and then they think, oh, I'm eating this exciting and exotic stuff. It's like, great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. What about?
It does take some time. But I feel like if we set up habits to do these things, then it becomes easy. You just kind of every month or so, you make a kimchi, boom, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Kimchi, I'll go. It just makes the salad a little bit more exciting because when I make a salad, I'm talking like a big plate, and it's just the mixed greens, spinach, kale, and then whatever else I chop up. And I'm chopping things up and just throwing them in a big storage container. Every day I'll chop a little bit more and then grab that out. And that's the fun part, is going to the grocery store and pulling in whatever I want. If I could be doing more canning, I'd be able to actually use what I can grow in the summertime. A little bit more throughout the year.
Well, as far as incorporating in your life, one option is to make it a social thing.
Yeah.
So you have people over and you have kind of a canning party, because just doing canning by yourself might not be that fun.
That's true. It becomes a chore, I'm sure.
Yeah, one person in the comments mentioned about quality of salt, and I'm sure you'll read about that if you decide to do
Right.
kimchi. You want to do a salt without iodine in it, and usually your sea salts are better. I'm not an expert on salt, but you should definitely make sure you're getting a salt that isn't going to kill the bacteria in your kimchi.
Now, sea salt, I'm horrible at cooking with because of its strength.
Mhm.
It just seems to be way more powerful than the table salt that I'm used to, the iodized salt. So I've got to learn how to use that if I'm going to do it, because
Yeah,
if you
I've
screw it up,
messed that up too.
if you screw it up,
I've made
man, it's bad.
Yeah, I made a kimchi once that I couldn't even eat. It was too salty.
Yeah.
But I ended up just draining the liquid off and then replacing the liquid and then reducing the total salt content.
Okay.
And it ended up okay. I also had that problem with garlic where I used way too much garlic. I just recently had a visitor come through,
Yep.
and I made a dish that she did not even want to eat. So I think I overdid it.
Yeah, it's easy to do if you're used to it. You get into
Right.
that routine, and I definitely do. And I hated it. I hated garlic for many, many years, and now I'm so in love with that plant.
So it sounds like you're pretty conscious about trying to eat in a healthy way. It sounds like you've researched some things. What was your environment growing up in, or what influenced you to become aware?
Um, Growing up, it was PB&J, chicken fingers, hot dogs, hamburgers, um, steaks. Um, Also, like kind of like the old home family meals of like a roast or boiled dinner. My grandmother did a lot of boiled dinners.
So
Uh,
Midwestern American food.
yeah, yeah. And I don't really know when it changed. I think that I went on my 21st birthday. I had a breakdown, and it was during a health class. I had a nutrition and fitness class in college. It was a requirement. And at the same time, I read Siddhartha. And I couldn't
Mhm.
believe that these things had not been introduced to me before. I had to wait 21 years to learn how to live a decent life. Um, Kind of resented the American culture that I'd been in. And I'm still fighting with that today because those are my guilty pleasures. Those are the things that make me happy, the cheese and the bacon, and they just make me happy. They fill a void, and then they make me feel like butt.
Yeah, I understand. That's a tricky one. So, what's your favorite food that's good for you, and what's your favorite food that isn't?
Um, Favorite food that's good for me changes quite often. You stumped me there. Favorite food that's bad for me? That's easy. That's a bacon cheeseburger with fries, side of mayo, side of ranch. I guess I just haven't experienced good cooking. Um, I failed at making quinoa. I've failed at trying different things, stir fries, vegetable stir fries. I guess green beans are probably my go-to vegetable.
Yep.
I absolutely love green beans. A
Yeah, I like those too.
little bit of garlic powder and salt and pepper on those, and I'm good. Love them.
Very cool. And do you eat different than most of your friends?
I I think I do. Yes. I live a fairly secluded life right now, except for when I'm at work and the people that are around me at work. Lunchtime is their sacred place, and it's Chinese food or pizza or those things that make you feel good for a little while. And then I'm fighting either that or going and getting a salad. And most days I go and I get the salad. I stick to my guns.
Cool. And you mentioned you raise some food during the summers. What kind of stuff do you raise?
Um, do like a cucumber patch. Tomatoes are easy. Green peppers, green beans, yellow beans, peas, but they're no fun. Nobody likes picking peas. Um, we do rhubarb. My mom makes a killer strawberry rhubarb pie. That's a family tradition. My grandfather used to do corn. He had a cornfield, and he did a lot of weird things. He tried peanuts. He had an apple tree. He would just try different things every year. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Zucchini is another easy one up here. Anybody can grow zucchini. Swiss chard, beet greens and vinegar sauce. Beet greens in vinegar, so good.
Hmm. Yeah, in wild fermentation, there's a radish greens ferment called gundrew that we tried here.
Okay.
I wasn't that impressed with it, but a lot of times when we try something the first time, it's not that good.
Yeah.
And then we'll try it again, and we
Yes.
eventually kind of figure out how to do it well.
It took me a couple weeks of eating one little piece of kimchi a day because it was so strong at first. It was way overpowering. But after a week, 2 weeks, I started craving it. I wanted more and more.
I didn't think I liked kimchi until I started making it, because the kimchi I bought was like this really hardcore Korean kimchi
Mm-hmm.
that was like really spicy. And I didn't realize that there's a bunch of different kinds of kimchi out there. And so now I know I can make it the way I want it.
Yeah. So the radish greens, is that just a standard radish that I've been throwing away the green to this whole time?
Yep, you got it.
What?
That's another thing with fermentation, is it can allow you to use foods that were waste and make them into something good. I'm now growing lots and lots of daikon radish, which is a long white radish often used in Asian food.
Okay.
It's a little bit milder of a radish. And so I've also been realizing I can use those greens as well and ferment those.
Right.
So by using different forms of fermentation, we can actually turn waste into something edible.
Yep. That's a good plan. What about fruits? I struggle in the fruit department because I feel like those are the ones that I'm buying. That's the part of my diet that is just laced in pesticides and probably nasty GMOs to fight off, to get an insanely huge sustainable crop every year. What do you do for fruits?
Well, I'm lucky. I live in the state of Michoacan in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a really big food producing area. Now, you'll still find that there's some GMOs, although Mexico has kicked some GMOs out. You'll still find that there's pesticides.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm buying more locally, there's less energy overall going into the production of these fruits and veggies. Also, they don't have to be, for example, harvested too early and treated in some way to then be shipped off to somewhere like Chicago or wherever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, I'm very lucky. Also, I'm able to grow some of my own food, and my neighbors can grow some food. So, I don't have as much of a problem there.
Okay.
Now, in your case, even if you're eating food that's GMO and has some pesticides, it's still better than eating total crap.
Right.
So, what are you going to do? You got to eat
strawberries are still way better than the bacon cheeseburger.
Exactly. And in fact, the World Health Organization just recently put out a report on how bad processed meats are for you.
That was the bacon causes cancer scare that it just circled the social media. Bacon causes cancer, and then it disappeared, and everyone went on with their lives enjoying bacon. But and those are the guilty pleasures for me. It's the bacon, pepperoni, salami, all that stuff. It's so delicious. But you can get the same effect from the salts with your kimchi or your pickles and whatnot. So what I'm looking to do is find replacements for all of the things in my life that are killing me slowly.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not going to kill you to a little bit of most things anyway.
Right.
But I almost wonder, like with the processed meat things, it's got to be the stuff they're putting in it.
Oh yeah.
Because originally, when they were making sausages, it was just taking bits of meat and then packing it and preserving it well in your home environment where you have control of the process and you know what you're doing.
Right.
As opposed to, you know, having processed meats made in China for meat that was shipped there from the United States or who knows what.
Right.
I mean, this stuff is just too complicated, you know.
Everything right now is way too complicated. The amount of shipping that we do is it's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
But I want to get more into getting an indoor gardening setup going on so that I can at least have herbs year round. I can have the dill and the cilantro, the things that are easy to do in a window box, and find the right rotation and cycle through that. Just like constantly have those coming in, because that helps with cooking and keeping things interesting.
Yeah, I think, you know, your attitude is awesome because, like, you can't just totally go overboard and have it stick and have it work for you.
Right.
I think you have to kind of go down the list of all the things you could do and say, okay, well, I feel like doing that. I feel like raising some herbs, you know, and maybe I'll make kimchi. And I could do all this other stuff, but it's just overwhelming to change everything.
I can't be stocking my forest with rabbits just yet. But,
right.
But I do have the space for it, and I do have wild rabbits, and it would probably be pretty easy just to throw them out there in the 4-acre, tiny little 4-acre lot we've got. But it's my dad's little slice of nature. He just bought this up so that houses couldn't be built around us, and then never touched it. And now there's a pine grove that he planted down there, and it's turning into a little forest. So
that's fantastic, and that is actually a lot of space.
Yeah.
Because you probably have plants out there you could machete or something and toss into your rabbits pen.
Yeah.
What I do rabbits is I keep them in a really big area.
Yes.
And so they just play and have fun. I don't keep them in cages or anything. So they dig a hole down into the ground and they have their babies down there.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel real bad about having rabbits. And then, you know, eventually when they're over 2 kilos, you know, and I'm hungry, then I can go out there and break one's neck and cook it up. So
yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's a couple away right now, but it could be done.
It does take a little time, and there's things to learn. I've made a couple videos on rabbit farming and want to make some more detailed ones as well. Because they're actually easier than chickens, and chickens are easy.
Yeah. So,
have you thought about getting chickens at all?
No, you need to build. You need to build a coop. You need to protect them, right?
Right. Because like if you have raccoons or anything like that, or foxes,
we definitely have. We have all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically would have to build them a large enough jail to keep everything else out.
Right.
But large enough so that they aren't suffering and trapped.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, I don't know how much food waste your kitchen produces, but they'll eat all your food waste. You will have zero food waste.
Okay. I do. I try to compost everything, even my kava powder. You know, the what's left of that is just going in the compost. Everything.
That makes me imagine some chickens eating a bunch of kava and then just walking around really mellow.
Yeah, it's all going in the compost because let's face it, we have to pay to get rid of our trash. So the less trash you have.
Yeah. And so what will happen is your chickens will actually speed up the composting process because they'll be eating it and turning it into chicken shit.
Yep,
which chicken shit is a little bit more obnoxious than compost. But if you have the kind of acreage you're talking about, you could easily set them up with like a big enough pen or even maybe 2 pens and rotate them between them. And then you'll be trying to get the organic waste from your neighbors, if they produce any, to feed your chickens.
Yeah.
My recommendation is don't get a rooster, though.
The noise?
The noise.
Yeah. My neighbors would hate me.
Yeah.
Do you what other kinds of do you do any hunting at all down there? Are you?
I don't. I'm not a big hunter. there's fish in the lake, so I could go fishing.
Go fishing. Yeah.
But I want to check the water quality in the lake before I do that. And up here, the place is kind of hunted out. I mean, so there's deer here, but I've only seen one a few times in almost 12 years.
Yep.
So I don't want to kill them.
Right.
Luckily, I mean, sorry, there are hunters around here, but luckily enough people are doing things like going to the United States to work or have other sorts of income that there's not that many hunters. So I'm hoping that there'll be some kind of rebound in the wildlife, but it is out there. It's just very shy for good reason. But there's ocelots and foxes and bobcats and rattlesnakes and boa constrictors and tarantulas and scorpions and coyotes. Every night the coyotes are out there singing. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but I'm not going to kill it. For me, the rabbits are a better solution.
Oh yeah.
And ecologically speaking, we most of the year we can just give them forest plants that we have to cut anyway from trails. So for us, it's just plant waste, and for the rabbits, it's food, and then they turn into really yummy meat. So yeah, it's like a lot of these different systems I've been working on for years are finally kind of fitting together. And I can take the waste of one system and have it feed some other system.
That's what you got to do. Your little micro ecosystem there.
Yeah, it takes years to figure it out, though.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of the rabbits. The thing that just hurts me now is the winter, because it's just.
Yeah, I don't know how you deal with that. You would have to build shelter for them and stuff, and that's a whole different thing. Yeah, you'd have to really think about that, and they are a living being, so you have to be careful. I've avoided getting very many domesticated animals because as soon as you have a domesticated animal, you have work you have to do to keep something else happy.
Right.
If you're just planting trees, well, you can ignore the trees for years if you want.
Right. What kinds of things can I get as far as plants or trees that would go dormant in the winter and then provide in the summer?
There's lots and lots of stuff. Unfortunately, I don't know your climate well enough. Yeah. And so that's a case where you should go to a nursery and ask them.
Yeah.
And specifically, I think you should grow things that don't need any care at all. That's the ideal. So often those will be native plants, but not always. There are other plants. I mean, we've passed plants all around the world now that are really useful. And so I would say go with whatever your folks at the nursery say requires no work from you at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, like, I have spearmint that comes up every year. And that's
great.
That's a weed, I don't do anything. I don't even try to spread it around. It's just doing its thing.
Yeah. And so you can make your teas with that too.
Yep.
That's perfect. Yeah, I'm lucky because here winter is really mild. I'll post a link in the video to the climate here. But what I've got is a rainy season during the summer, which is great because that's when the plants want water, right? And then winter is dry. And so it's not all drizzly and cold. And I come from Seattle, so, I don't really enjoy that kind of drizzly winter. Yeah. I already know what that's like and don't want to experience that anymore. Yeah, no, please. So I love the climate here. The only change I would probably make is to have the rains come 2 months earlier, because they come in June. And if they came earlier, I could just grow so much more stuff. But this winter, I've been lucky. We've had a couple of big rainstorms. And so I have right now, what is it now? It's almost January. And I have radishes and squash growing and chilacayotes, which are kind of a weird melony squash thing. I don't know. It's a weird Mexican thing. And so there's actually food out there that I can just go eat right now. I have salad greens going. And then there's also a plant called nopales, which you probably can't grow there, but that's the prickly pear cactus. And those are free food all year long.
There you go.
So.
Yeah.
Poco poco.
Poco poco.
So I never picked up your name.
I am Adam.
Adam from Homeworld Arts.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's a little indie game company, and make hats and T-shirts, and just any artwork I do is under that. So
And you make games?
yes, yeah, Android and iOS apps, a little homegrown app development business.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. Well, Adam, thanks a lot for talking to me about food and apparently about kava as well. That was a very fun conversation. It's
All
been
right,
nice getting to know you.
Thanks for having me.
Still hard to think about these things. It's a complex issue. What food is subsidized? Where does it come from? Who grew it? What's the effect on the earth? All these things matter. And most of us are not farmers. We don't think about that. We just go to the grocery store and buy stuff. So I'm happy to be in a conversation with a guy who actually cares at all. It's cool stuff.